Hello everyone and welcome back to my favourite room of the house. Before I start, I'd just like to thank everybody who has clicked subscribe on my channel. To everyone who has watched my videos and left a like or a comment, I am really grateful. It's just sometimes astonishing just how many people all over the world are watching little old me in my little old spare room in little old Adelaide, Australia, talking about my action figures. It certainly is heartening and it motivates me to keep producing videos like this. So if you haven't subscribed, welcome. It's not too late. Feel free to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything anytime I post something here. Today I wanted to talk to you about a corner of my cabinet that is, I suppose, not often covered in G.I. Joe circles. It doesn't get a lot of love. Well, I don't think it does anyway. And that's because it's a little bit strange. And that, of course, is the Street Fighter 2 subset of G.I. Joe. And I need to preface this video by saying there were actually two sort of Street Fighter figure lines in the 3 3/4 inch scale. One of them came out in 1993 and they're officially recognized as being part of the G.I. Joe line. As you can see here, the card backs have got the G.I. Joe branding on them, both on the front and the back. This card here is for Vega. I've got Ryu as well. It's pretty cool. Got M. Bison. As you can see, again, got the G.I. Joe branding. That's a pretty nice looking card, that one. Whoever owned this card took their time taking the bubble off and left behind a lot of the artwork, so that's nice. I've got Balrog, which is quite a popular figure, I'm told. Again, the card art on this one, fantastic. Another G.I. Joe branded Street Fighter 2 figure. And of course, Ken Masters. Another pretty cool card back there as well. So the 1993 lineup were officially branded G.I. Joe. And they were called Street Fighter 2 figures. In 1994, Hasbro also brought out a standalone line of Street Fighter official movie figures. Now, these aren't recognized as G.I. Joe figures in G.I. Joe circles because they weren't advertised as G.I. Joe figures. They were simply advertised as Street Fighter figures. So, as you can see here, there's no sign of any G.I. Joe branding on the card back. There is some Hasbro branding, but no G.I. Joe logo to be seen. There is Capcom, which is a reference to the developer, I suppose, of the original Street Fighter video game. But the card backs don't contain any G.I. Joe branding at all. So I've got, what do I got here? Paratrooper Guile and Rock Trooper Guile. So I'm going to show you some figures from both lines today. What I've also done is I've grabbed out the G.I. Joe figures whose parts were used to produce these Street Fighter figures, which is interesting to have a look at. So I've got some notes here. I'm going to record this all in one take, so if the dog runs in or the doorbell rings, I do apologise. I do this as a hobby, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on post-production. It's more about just showing off the figures, and I do apologise if things go awry. But hopefully they won't, because I've got everything ready here right next to me. So without any further ado, let's get the first of these 1993 figures out. And I want to start with my favourite one from the line, and that one is, of course, and I think this is everyone's favourite, really. Maybe not everyone's, because we'll get to a character a little bit later that a lot of people have marked as their favourite. But my favourite is Blanca, of course, or Blanca. I'm not sure how to correctly pronounce that. Please correct me in the comments below if you think it's Blanca or Blanca. But we'll go with Blanca just for the sake of this video. There were actually two Blanca figures from the 1993 Street Fighter 2 lineup. One of them was this green color, and he was sold as a standalone figure, I think. And the other one was a blue color, and I reckon he came with a vehicle. And I haven't been lucky enough to come across the blue one just yet. I'm very happy with the green one though, because Blanca was obviously green in the video game. He's a pretty mean looking figure. Now, his body construction you might see as a little bit familiar. And that's because most of the parts to produce Blanca were taken from the 1988 Road Pig. And I grabbed Road Pig out of my cabinet so you can see. Whoops, just dropped a couple of Road Pig's accessories there. I'll pick them up later, but there he is. As you can see, the torso is exactly the same. The waist piece and the arms and the lower body, the legs, they're all the same. The head's really the only major difference. I'll just put Road Pig's little crossbow back on. There we go, I found it. So yeah, that's the first of my Street Fighter figures. I reckon I'll leave Blanca out because we're talking about Street Fighter, and I'll put Road Pig back down here beside me. The next figure I want to talk about is Chun-Li, who I think was the only female character in Street Fighter 2. Again, I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments. I'm no expert. I'm learning all these things myself. But here is Chun-Li. There she is. Now, of course, this Chun-Li figure is based upon the Ninja Force Scarlet, which also came out in 1993. And there she is there. Now, these figures I wouldn't say are too visually appealing. Obviously, we're getting away from the O-ring configuration that made the G.I. Joe figures so popular and so posable. So these legs, when they break, they can be a bit of a problem. And I don't think they're real flattering to the female form. Yeah, I don't know. They just, they don't really appeal to me, and I've begrudgingly purchased them and kept them in my cabinet. They're not a piece that I photograph too often on Instagram. However, I do respect their place in the line, and they're cool figures. Mine are both a bit loose. As you can see, Chun-Li's head is wobbling around there, but I'll put her over there. Hopefully she can stand up by herself, and I'll put Scarlet down beside me. The next figure is Dowsum. Now Dowsum was a fellow from India in the Street Fighter 2 game, and funnily enough, he was one of a couple of figures in the Street Fighter 2 lineup that has a completely original sculpt. So he's not based on any other G.I. Joe figures. He was completely designed from scratch, which is pretty cool, I thought. He's also got this Ninja Force action, so he's very similar to the Ninja Force G.I. Joe. He doesn't have the screw in the back to access his O-ring. But yeah, obviously this arm has got a Ninja Force action to it. While I'm talking about figures that are a completely original design, I might just grab this guy, and this is E Honda, who was quite a well-known figure in the Street Fighter lineup. He's a lot bigger in size than all the other, I suppose, G.I. Joe figures, so it can be tricky to get him to stand up. Maybe I'll go without the stand. There we go. So if he falls over, I apologise in advance. I'm missing his Mawashi, I think that's how you pronounce it. He has like a sumo wrestling, how should we say it? Sumo wrestling. What is it? It's a waist piece. It's pants. It's pants, but they're not pants. So he seems to be just kicking around in his jocks at the moment. But the Mawashi that was supplied with E Honda originally was a soft fabric, blue fabric. So I might be able to sneak out to a a craft store and reproduce that. The other thing about my E Honda is that his Ninja Force action is broken, so I struggle to display him without his leg kicking up. So I've done my best. Campbell from Kiwi GI Joe Customs and Creations impression. Shout out to Campbell, and I've made a little wire hook here, which hooks behind his knee and then up into the back of his neck, like so. And that seems to keep the leg in place well enough for me to display him without too many issues in my cabinet. And it's going to take a little bit of fiddling around on camera to get it to work, but it shouldn't be a problem. There we go. And he just stands up nicely without the leg doing a high kick. So that's E. Edmund Honda. Whoops. There goes that. There goes that leg again. One more try. Here we go. And then I'll move him up next to Dowson over there. So, I mean, honestly, if you don't play with this, it works really well. But as soon as you start fiddling with it, that's when it struggles a bit. But there we go. Hopefully he'll hang in there for the duration of this video. All right, the next Street Fighter 2 figure. Now, I talked a little bit before about everyone's favourite being Blanca. I suppose from my experience, living and growing up in the 90s in Australia, Guile seemed to be everyone's favourite in Street Fighter. And I've got two versions of Guile here. One of them, I think the brown one, came with a vehicle, which was the Sonic Boom tank. The Sonic Boom tank was a remake of the Paralyzer from the G.I. Joe line. So that was the brown one. The green one was a figure that was sold on card. Again, the body construction of these guys would look very familiar. And it's easy to say, oh, look, that torso is from Road Pig, because it definitely is. And I'll get Road Pig out again. There he is. So that muscular torso, of course, is from Road Pig. But the arms and the legs are from different figures. So the crutch and the waist piece, believe it or not, I am told, is from 1986 Roadblock, which is this guy. And now that I put him up next to those figures, you can see quite clearly that those legs were just repainted and used to produce Guile. So that's the waist piece and the legs and the torso. And the arms, interesting little note, the arms come from 1991 Dusty. And there he is there. So they're quite muscular arms. It'd be easy to, I suppose, assume that the arms came from Road Pig, as did the torso, but they actually came from that 1991 Dusty figure. But all in all, the Guile figure, I reckon, is a very cool figure, both in the green and the brown colorways. That haircut is just amazing. They weren't the only Guile figures to come out in this 3 3/4 inch size, and we'll get into a couple more a little bit later. But for now, we'll keep talking about the Street Fighter 2 figures. And I wanted to look at the core Street Fighter characters. So we'll start with Ken Masters. So here's Ken. His arms look a little bit leery because he also has this Ninja Force action, which is pretty cool. Ken's face here is quite expressive. Obviously, all of the heads are original sculpts, but Ken's face looks like he's ready to really do battle in the arcade, which is pretty cool. Now, of course, that action figure sculpt comes from what I think is one of the nicer versions of Storm Shadow. I mean, every version of Storm Shadow is pretty good, let's be honest. but the 1992 version of Storm Shadow is quite iconic. So as you can see there, the torso, the arms, and the legs were taken straight from the 1992 Storm Shadow figure. My Storm Shadow has seen better days. His O-ring actually gave way, and it's pretty tricky to operate on these guys because they don't have the traditional O-ring setup. And I'm told that the innards are full of gears and mechanisms. So I just came up with an inventive way to create a harness for him out of some black tubing there. Yeah, my Storm Shadow has an interesting harness setup holding him together. But that I suppose helps to illustrate where the Ken Masters figure sculpt came from. So that's Ken. Of course, the other core character in Street Fighter 2 was Ryu or Ryu. Again, another one I don't really know how to pronounce. I did Japanese at school, believe it or not. So everything within me tells me that this guy should be called Ryu. But I know he's commonly referred to as Ryu, and I'm really happy that I've got this figure because he's a real crisp, bright, nice white, and he's hard to find in that near new condition. Seen a lot of brown and yellow Ryus kicking around, so this is definitely one of my favorites. He is, of course, based on the 1992 Slice figure from the gijoe line. Obviously came out in the Ninja Force subset, and I'm just dropping his accessories everywhere here, so just bear with me. But there is our mate Slice. Maybe just move that sword out the way so we can compare the figure sculpt. So again, waist, chest, arms, and legs all came from Mr. Slice to produce that 1993 Street Fighter 2 Ryu or Ryu figure. So I'll put him over there, and I'll put Slice down beside me again. We're sort of getting towards the end of this original lineup. We're almost there. The next one I wanted to show you is Zangief. There he is there. Now, my Zangief figure, he's seen better days. He's pretty floppy, and I had to touch up his beard and his hair with some black texture because he was really well played with. I dare not open those legs up because I reckon the pins in those knees have broken. But look, he does enough to stand up in my cabinet unassisted, and really that's all I can ask of him. Zangief was actually based on a couple of figures from the original run. You might recognize the upper body as the torso and arms from this guy, which is Norgahide. So those abs and that vest and that necklace, certainly very recognizable, especially when you see them both together. But obviously I didn't use Norgahide's legs. As you can see, the legs are pretty different there. The legs, believe it or not, actually come from the 1991 Bat, which is an interesting choice given that the Bat was a robot. So they've grabbed these robotic legs and they've put them on Zangief, who doesn't appear to be wearing any pants. And the sculpt is still there. As you can see, the real mechanical sort of markings are on Zangief's legs. But they've just left him, I suppose, completely pantless, which is a little bit interesting. But yeah, that's something that I suppose you wouldn't have picked unless you knew. So that's a Zangief. I'll put these guys down here and then move on to the next one. Chuck Zangief over there. All right, another favourite of mine from the Street Fighter 2 lineup, and I've just dropped Scarlet down there. Sorry, Scarlet. I'll pick her up a little bit later. Another favourite of mine is 1993 Street Fighter 2 Balrog. And this is a no-brainer. We all recognise that sculpt as being from the original 1987 Big Boa. Interesting little bit of trivia here. I'm fairly certain Balrog was meant to be called M. Bison, which is a figure that I'll talk about in a little while. But when Street Fighter went to the States, I think it was deemed that the name M. Bison for an African-American boxer was a little too close to breaching upon intellectual property of Mike Tyson. So his name was swapped with another figure in the line. This M. Bison, aka Mike Tyson, became Balrog. And he's still called Balrog to this day, and that was obviously to get around those copyright issues. So he's a really cool figure. I really love that figure, and I often take photos of them together, having boxing matches and so on. But that's Balrog and Big Boa. I'll put Big Boa back down here and maybe hide Balrog over there with Blanca. Next figure I've got for you is Vega. Vega's really cool because he has quite a unique head sculpt. So there's Vega there. He's obviously got some Spanish bullfighter sort of vibes, and the head sculpt has this amazingly long ponytail, which is certainly interesting. But Vega, you might recognise his sculpt belongs to Banzai from the original Ninja Force G.I. Joe lineup. There he is there. So obviously they went with a hard ponytail for Vega rather than the soft goods, which I don't think detracts from Vega, and I don't think the fact that Banzai doesn't have a hard ponytail detracts from him either. But they're both pretty cool figures, and yeah, I hope that clears up for you where the sculpt for Vega came from. So that's Vega. Now, I touched on M. Bison before. So the figure that actually ended up being called M. Bison, I should say the character that ended up being called M. Bison, was this guy. And I've actually got two versions of M. Bison. There was a red version, which was sold on card as a standalone figure. And there was this sort of teal or green or blue version of M. Bison, who came with a vehicle. The vehicle was called the Crimson Cruiser. And funny enough, I'm not a vehicle collector, but the Crimson Cruiser is one vehicle that I actually do have. And there it is there. It's a really cool vehicle. I think this is based on maybe the Badger from the original G.I. Joe line. Please let me know in the comments if I've got that correct. I think I have. But yeah, the Crimson Cruiser I picked up in a lot from a lad who was selling his childhood collection around the corner from me. And I don't know, as a guy who doesn't collect vehicles, I just became pretty attached to this one. So he sits on my shelf, and I do photograph him often for my Instagram page. So that's the Crimson Cruiser. But back to M. Bison. Here he is. Got the red and the green version there. As you can see, if you look very closely, there are some very familiar sort of body parts here. And I do apologise if the camera's not focusing as it should, but and I'm dropping figures everywhere too. But the torso from this guy comes from one of our favourite G.I. Joe figures, which is Hardball, the baseballer. And the legs are from, believe it or not, 1992 Destro. So those shin guards obviously are very sort of eye-catching on those Bison figures. A little bit understated on that original Destro though, because it's the same colour as the pants, but they really do stand out on those those M Bison figures. So that's M Bison. I'll add him to the collection of Street Fighter figures in the background here as well. All right, so that's all of the Street Fighter 2 figures that I own. I'm pretty sure I'm only missing one, and that would be Sagat. I hope that's how you say his name. Again, I'm no massive Street Fighter fan. I just collect these guys because they're in the G.I. Joe lineup. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to just hang around the machines in the video game arcade just watching other kids play these things because I didn't have the coins to put in the machines. And I'm sure if I did, I would have got beaten real quick. So I was happy just to watch other guys play the games. But I wasn't too familiar, I suppose, with the character names. Saga is the only one that I don't have, and I'll look to remedy that soon. He was a completely original figure. So one of 3 figures in that lineup, along with Dowson and E Honda, that were original sculpts. Now, from the Street Fighter the movie line, I don't have all of those figures either, but I'm lucky enough to have a good handful of them. And I thought I'd grab them out too and show you. First up, there was a Street Fighter the movie version of Dowson, which, as you recall, is one of those original sculpts. Get the camera to focus there. So Dowson's, I suppose, very similar to that original Dowson, but he's just got some purple strides rather than some yellow ones. So I'll chuck Dowson over there. There was also a Balrog figure in the Street Fighter the movie line. Here he is here, and I gotta say, this guy's again one of my favorites. I love the original Balrog, but this movie version of Balrog is also just phenomenal. One of the reasons I love him so much is because his figure sculpt is taken from the original 1990 Salvo. So you'll obviously recognize those ammunition belts around the legs from the Salvo figure, but the chest is also taken from Salvo, as well as the arms and the waist piece. Salvo was a figure I had when I was a kid, so quite attached to him, and I think that feeds into my attachment to the Street Fighter movie version of Balrog. But yeah, he's just a really cool figure and a really cool repaint of that original Salvo. The next figure I want to show you, well, I should probably, yeah, look, I'm just going to say it. I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versions of Guile here from the Street Fighter the movie lineup. And I think that's most of the versions from that lineup, but not all of them. So I've got 5, believe it or not, and I can't believe there's more out there. I'm sure I'll come across them in my collecting journey at some point. But let's start with Arctic Assault Guile. The head sculpt, as you will see, and I've just dropped his backpack, so I do apologise. The head sculpt, as you will see, is very different to the original Guile head sculpts. I've just picked up his backpack and I'll put that back on. It's quite bulky. I think I've got the rest of his accessories in my drawer there somewhere. Pretty sure this head sculpt comes from the version of Duke where he rides on a rocket launcher, or it could be completely original. I don't know. It's one thing I didn't look up. Again, feel free to correct me in the comments below. I'm no expert, but I can tell you, and if you haven't figured it out already, when I get it up, you'll kick yourself, because the Arctic Assault Guile is, of course, a reuse of the 1988 Blizzard G.I. Joe. There he is there. So, pretty cool reuse if you ask me. Yeah, that's Arctic Assault Guile. So, I'll chuck him over there. The next one I've got here is Paratrooper Guile. So here he is, same head sculpt as Arctic Assault Guile. Just really need that camera to focus so we can show him off perfectly. There it is. His head's a bit loose too. That's funny. What? I'll just stand him back up again. He had quite large holes on his foot peg, which is interesting. So that is 1994 Paratrooper Guile, and his figure sculpt is obviously based on this guy, which is 1992 Ace. I'm not sure which colorways I prefer. I think they're both a little bit odd. I'll take the helmet off here so you can see what Ace looks like under the lid. There he is there. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think maybe Ace is my favourite of the two. Maybe you'd like to let me know in the comments which one you prefer. But there he is. 1994 Street Fighter, the movie version. Paratrooper Guile was based on 1992 Ace. The next one is Rock Trooper Guile, and the best thing about this guy is his paint scheme. So obviously towards the end of the 90s, Hasbro was starting to experiment with these speckled sort of paint schemes, and they're an indication of what would have happened in the line if G.I. Joe continued beyond 1994, because a lot of those figures that came out in that sort of middle era of G.I. Joe had this awesome sort of paint speckled sort of finish to them. I talked about a few of them in my video about the Lost Era G.I. Joes, which has been really popular. So if you want to know a bit more about those 97 to early 2000s G.I. Joes, go and check it out. But back to today's topic. This is 1994 Paratrooper Guile. No, it's not. That was 1994 Paratrooper Guile. This is 1994 Rock Trooper Guile. So I told you anything could happen. I told you I was going to make mistakes. But 1994 Rock Trooper Guile is based on, of course, 1991 Dusty. And that's not the first time we've pulled him up today. So that 1991 Dusty figure was obviously very suitable, I suppose, for reuse in the Street Fighter the movie line. So that's Rock Trooper Guile. Okay, next up, Navy SEAL Guile. Here he is here, complete with his flippers and his trident gun and his scuba helmet. See if we can get that to focus again. There we go. So that's actually a really cool figure, that one. The colorways is just amazing. I think everything works there. That head sculpt certainly works with that torso and those accessories as well. He is, of course, based on, well, his body parts are taken from 1992 Wetsuit, which I have fished out of my cabinet, pardon the pun. There he is there. So even the helmet has been reused on both. The weapons are a little bit different. The flippers are just a reuse, a recolor. I think this version of Wetsuit's actually pretty underrated. So I like both. I think maybe the Guile is certainly a step up. Has a couple more individual sort of paint apps. So that is 1994 Navy SEAL Guile. And that brings me to the last figure I have from this Street Fighter lineup. And this one's a little bit odd. This is 1994 Sonic Boom Guile. And I said before that the Rock Trooper Guile was an indication of some of the good stuff that came out of G.I. Joe in, I suppose, the late 90s and early 2000s. Sonic Boom Guile is probably an indication of some of the subpar stuff that came out of G.I. Joe during that time. And that's because they simply went away from the O-ring articulation of the original line. Other than that, though, the figure's actually pretty cool. I like his colorways. It reminds me a lot of Triple T Sergeant Slaughter. And I know someone who will hate me for saying that. Sorry, Zazel. But yeah, the black tank top and the camo pants certainly reminds me of Sergeant Slaughter. So that is 1994 Sonic Boom Guile. There are heaps more Street Fighter the movie figures, and you can check them out online. I'm not sure if 3D Joes have got them. I know Yojo definitely does. It's in a separate part of the website. You have to dig a little bit deeper to find all of those figures. But it's definitely worth having a look at. It's quite a useful sort of a resource. I'd love to know what your favourite is. Did I put your favourite here in front of you, or have I missed your favourite? Do I not own your favourite? Tell me which G.I. Joe / Street Fighter figure I need to add to my collection stat. That'd be great. But look, that's all I've got for you today. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe. Like I said at the start, it's really heartening to see those numbers tick over. I'm not a numbers person by any stretch, and I make these videos because I enjoy making them, but when people engage with them, that certainly keeps me motivated to keep producing videos like this, rather than just sitting on the couch and doing whatever else I feel like doing on the weekend. But look, thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching this far. And I look forward to everything that is posted in the comments below. I'll see you there, and I'll see you next time. Yo, Joe.